Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey. Good boy, Tucker.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Okay, and so today's partner that we're going to be talking about is going to be Zapier. And so you might have seen our newsletter that went out. We actually improved our integration. So we've had a Zapier integration for a while now, but we have even more options available now. And so I wanted to create this webinar to highlight some of those new improvements that we've made. But just in case this is your first experience with Zapier, you may not be familiar with the product, I wanted to start off by just introducing you what Zapier is and what they do. So what is Zapier? Some people call it Zapier, Zapier, tomato, tomato, but Zapier is what I refer to it as, and it's a tool that helps you automate repetitive tasks between two or more apps, no coding necessary. So congratulations, you've all just become developers. You now have the power to make apps integrate with one another. And you also don't have to go to a coding boot camp or go get a computer science degree. Zapier helps make that pretty easy for you. And I say pretty easy because, well, Zapier is probably one of our more advanced integrations. It's sometimes can be a little bit finicky. You got to be really particular as to what you want to build with the integration. And so I'm going to show that to the best of my ability today. There is a chance that even I might mess up with these integrations, and that's okay, because I'll show you where we can go and get some really good support just in case. So that's what Zapier is. What does Zapier do? Well, when an event happens in one app, Zapier communicates to another app, telling it to perform a certain action. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, you're in Redtail CRM, and let's say maybe you add an activity to your calendar or create a contact, or maybe you're working with opportunities or even workflows. What Zapier can do is track those additions, updates, deletions from those four things, and it can actually perform a task in another app. We can also go the other direction as well. So say, for example, you're working in another application and you create some kind of action or do something or initiate something into action. We can actually have a follow-up happen in Redtail based off of whatever that action was. So think of Zapier as kind of this message man between two or more softwares, where when something happens in one, it initiates an action in another. Very similar to if you've ever used the automations tool in Redtail. So again, when something happens in Redtail, we can initiate something else happening in Redtail with automations. Now with Zapier, we're doing that same kind of thing, but this time we're doing it across softwares. So pretty cool stuff. All right, and let's get into, first off, how do I integrate Redtail and Zapier? So how do I get Zapier and Redtail to communicate and talk with one another? Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is create for yourself a Zapier account. Now, Zapier does have a freemium pricing model. So the base level subscription is actually free. You can do a lot with Zapier without really having to shell out any kind of subscription price for it. Now, you can do a lot more if you are willing to pay just a little bit per month to make some more Zaps happen. And so just so you know, to create a Zapier account, what you're going to want to do is head to zapier.com. And I would either start with just the free version or even just the free trial version, because that's going to be your best bet as to just getting yourself familiar with the software. And then you can make a determination on whether or not you'd like to pay for it or not. So I actually have that step completed here. I am signed into my Zapier account. Just so you know, I am also on the starter package of Zapier. That was all that I needed for what we're going to need to demonstrate today. So just in case you're wondering what subscription to subscribe to, again, I recommend just starting with either the free version or the free trial and then making that determination. I ultimately decided on the starter package. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add Redtail as an app to Zapier. Okay, so we created our account and we're going to come to this page here. Now, what we're going to do is navigate over to this left-hand menu and choose the My Apps option. My Apps option here on the left-hand side. Okay. Once you get to this page here, you are going to be able to see all of the different applications that you have linked with Zapier. So in this case, I don't have any quite, oh, actually, never mind. Yes, I do. Here they come. And so one that I'm going to want to add here is obviously Redtail CRM. And so I'm going to click this blue Add Connection button here in the top right corner. From there, I can either choose it from the list, or what I can do is just search for it. I'm going to type in Redtail here, and there it is. There's Redtail CRM. So I'm going to click on Redtail CRM, and it's going to redirect me to a new page in a different tab. Okay. And so now that we're at this new page, what Zapier is asking for is what's called a Zapier token. Zapier token. This is basically just an ID number that creates the connection between your Redtail account and Zapier. And we can find that ID number or that Zapier token from within Redtail CRM under the Manager Integrations page. So let's go there now, and we'll go ahead and find that Zapier token. So that way we can provide it to Zapier and create the connection. So let's go ahead and slide here. And here I am in Redtail CRM. And of course, Manager Integrations is going to be found under your name in the top right-hand corner. And it's going to be, looks like the 5th option on that list. So manage your integrations. Just in case you're wondering, anybody can set up integrations in Redtail. You do not have to be a database admin to enable certain integrations. So this should be available to everybody, regardless of what your access level to Redtail CRM is. Okay. From the Manager Integrations page here, we're going to go ahead and scroll down until we get to the very bottom. And we know it's going to be at the bottom because it's alphabetized. So Zapier starts with a Z. It's going to be the very last one on our list. And we're going to make sure that it's turned on. Just in case you might have turned it off in the past, you can always come up here to this disabled section. And again, see any apps that you might have turned off. And then feel free to go ahead and click there to turn it back on. Okay, but I have mine turned on. So again, we're going to scroll down. And we are going to choose this little settings cog next to the on button and choose settings. All right, so here's this token that Zapier wants. And so what we're going to do is we are going to take this token here and we are just going to highlight the whole thing. And I'm going to right click and choose copy. Now you could also use the keyboard shortcut, the Control-C, to copy this item here. But regardless, you're just going to make sure that it's copied to your clipboard here. And then if you go back to Zapier here, we're just going to go ahead and paste that code back into this field here. Okay, so now we have our Zapier token inside here. We're going to click this yes, continue, and that's going to create the connection between our Zapier account and our Redtail account. Now, I already had this set up prior to starting the webinar, so I'm actually going to choose the cancel button here, but you, of course, would choose the yes and continue button and just follow the prompts, and you will have your Redtail account connected to your Zapier applications. So there it is, Redtail CRM added and connected to Zapier under the My App section. Okay. Now, before we move on and start creating some more Zaps here, I wanted to just highlight that setup process one more time, just in case you need to go over it again, or maybe you want to share it with a colleague. Well, in Redtail, if you come up here to the question mark icon in the top right-hand corner of your database, you can visit the Redtail help desk This is our knowledge base where all of our written documentation is. And in the top right-hand corner, just search for the word Zapier. And again, this first article here is going to give you step-by-step instructions about everything that I just did. So again, going to manage your integration, copying that token, putting it over into Zapier. So in case you need it, this is a great place for you to go to read those instructions again. In fact, let me grab this link here and I'm just going to pop that in the chat. And so if you want to save that for your records, or you might need it, I'm going to go put this in the chat field here. And feel free to use that link to find this article. All right, awesome. We'll close out of this for now. And we'll come back to our slide deck. So yeah, again, just to recap, we're going to create an account. We're going to go to My Apps. We're going to search for Redtail. Oops, sorry, got a little click happy there. Search for Redtail, add a new connection. And then of course you want to go to Manage Your Integrations to find that token and paste into Zapier, and your connection will be made. Your two platforms will be integrated. All right, so I also wanted to just highlight, I talked about how we've had an integration with Zapier before, but it has since improved. And so just so you know about those improvements, here are the different triggers that we've added in orange, as well as the new actions that we've added as well. Now, I don't have time to cover each one of these new updates, but I will be covering just some of the most popular. So again, these are your different options. Again, these are your trigger points, those things that start in Redtail, and these are your actions, the follow-up items that happen in Redtail. Okay, cool. So with that said, let's jump into our first Zap of the day. And this is going to be using a Zap with activity. So we're talking about the Redtail calendar at this point. And what we want to do with the Redtail calendar is when we add an item in Redtail, we want to create a Zoom meeting that follows. Okay, so for example here, if I schedule a client review over Zoom with one of my contacts, I want that Zoom meeting to be automatically created. I don't want to have to go to zoom.com and log into my account and copy and paste the information from the activity over, right? I want it to just book in Redtail means book it in Zoom. And so that's what Zapier does. It's that communication between the two platforms. Now you might be sitting here thinking, well, shoot, Austin, I don't use Zoom. I use WebEx or Google Meets or Microsoft Teams, right? These are interchangeable. Zapier has over 2,000 applications, and that list is growing every day. So while you might not use Zoom as your video conferencing platform, maybe your other video conferencing platform might be available with Zappers as well. And you can go ahead and create a Zap very similar to the one we're about to create just now. Now, I mentioned previously, Zaps are not the easiest thing in the world to create. They are, again, a little finicky, and we got to be very particular as to what we want. So here's what I have for you guys. We're going to go back to that Redtail help desk. Okay. So again, we're in Redtail. We click on that question mark here in the top right-hand corner of your database, and we choose Redtail help desk. Okay. If you click on this CRM button here right in the middle, you can again scroll all the way to the bottom because it starts with the letter Z. You can find this section here. It's called Integrations with Redtail using Zapier. In fact, let me grab that link for you and throw it in the chat as well. So that way you can reference these. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, this is a link to all the different Zaps that we're going to create today. So first up, we have integrating Zoom and Redtail. So again, this is going to be a fire hose of knowledge, and we got a lot of Zaps to cover today. So I got to go a little bit faster than I'd like to. But if you want to follow along step by step, here is a help desk article that is going to take you step by step by step to create the same Zap that we're about to create in just a couple minutes. So again, if you need a little bit slower instructions, you want to be able to go back and maybe do this at a later time, here are some helpful help desk articles that will help you in creating the Zaps that we're going to create together in just a couple seconds. All right, enough buildup. Let's get to it. Let's build our first Zap inside Zapier using activities in Redtail and Zoom. To create a Zap, you're going to click, you guessed it, the Create Zap button here in the top left-hand corner. From here, you're going to be redirected to the Create Zap page. Now, in this case, it's asking me to select a trigger, an event that starts your Zap. Now, in this example here, the Zap is going to start with an activity being added in Redtail. And so what I'm going to do here is from my list of apps, I'm going to go ahead and choose Redtail CRM. Then from there, we can click and choose from our available trigger events. We got quite a few of them, but the one I want to focus on for this one is activity created. So again, we choose Redtail and we chose activity created. Let's go ahead and continue next. And then it's going to ask us to select our Redtail CRM account. Now, if you follow the steps that we just went over previously, you'll already have your Redtail CRM account added here. So you'll just go ahead and choose the account that you added in via Zap and select from the list. Now, if you haven't done that already, you do have the option to just click Connect New Account here as well. And then again, you're just going to need to grab that token from your Redtail CRM database and copy it into here in order to make that connection. So again, you should have it available on the list. If it's not, again, just add Connect New Account and then go get that token and copy and paste it in, and you should be good to go. So let's hit continue. And now what Zapier is going to do is it's going to look for a test trigger. What it wants to do at this point is it wants to find an activity that we can use to test this Zap with. And so I'm going to click this test trigger button here, and let's see what Zapier finds. Okay, look at that. It found an activity. Now, if you're following along with me today and you just got an error message saying activity could not be found or something went wrong, you might have a big orange box here and you're not able to continue with creating your Zap. What that means is Zapier had some trouble finding an activity in that Redtail account that you have set up. So just in case you get an error message here, what I want you to do is go ahead and open up your Redtail account, click on that plus button and add in an activity, okay? By doing that, it's going to refresh those APIs. That's what Zapier uses to talk to Redtail and the other applications. And it's going to be able to identify that trigger. So just go ahead and create an activity and then refresh your test here, and you should be able to find an activity. So in this case, it was actually able to find 3. Again, it doesn't really matter too much which one I pick. I can kind of pick whichever one I want. But here again, you can choose from the available activities and you can see the details of each activity here in this bottom box. Okay. So once you identified an activity that you want to go ahead and create, go ahead and hit this continue button. Also, just a pro tip. In this case, because I'm creating an activity for a client review to schedule a Zoom meeting, I probably want to use a client review as my actual test trigger. Does that make sense? So I probably wouldn't want to use a task or a phone call in this case. I want to actually test it with an activity labeled as client review. So that way I know for sure that that Zap is going to work. Okay. So again, I chose activity B here, which was in fact labeled with the category client review. And so let's go ahead and continue. So looks like we got that green check mark here, which means we are good to proceed. And so now we are going to choose the action. This is going to be what happens after the trigger event happens. So we create the activity in Redtail. What happens next? In this case, we are going to go ahead and choose Zoom here. And we are going to choose the event that follows it. So in this case, I want it to create a meeting. We'll go ahead and hit continue. All right, and then just like we did with Redtail, we're going to choose our Zoom account. Now, again, you can go ahead and set up all of your applications with My Apps, which I have done here. Or if you need to, you can also just add it from this page here by clicking Connect New Account. And then from here, you'll just need to sign into your Zoom account to create the connection between the two platforms. So in this case, it signed me in automatically. I just click authorize and I can go ahead and create the connection between Zoom and Zapier. Again, I already have that set up, so I'm not going to do that. And we're just going to continue with the account that's already created. All right, and now here is where I'm going to create the connections between the values in the activity and the values in my Zoom meeting. So for example here, I'm going to choose meeting type is going to be equal to meeting. And my topic, I'm going to match that up with the subject of my Redtail activity. So in this box down here below, I can choose which field from Redtail do I want to populate the topic field in Zoom with. So in this case, I'm going to choose client review, and then I added that Zapier piece there just so we could test it with Zapier. So again, the topic will be client review or whatever, in this case, not necessarily client review, but whatever the subject is in the activity is what's going to populate here into that topic field. For the timing of the Zoom meeting, I'm going to choose the start time of the activity. So again, whatever the start time that I put in for the activity, that's going to be the start time of the Zoom meeting. I'll go ahead and put in my time zone here. If I want to, I can always add a password in for that Zoom meeting. And then finally, I'm going to put in the duration in minutes of how long I want that Zoom meeting to be scheduled for. So for example, if my client reviews are 90 minutes, I'm going to put 90 in here to indicate a 90-minute meeting. So in this case, the start date will be from the activity, and then it's going to add in 90 minutes for the duration of the meeting. Okay. So again, this is what I was mentioning earlier about how we have to be very particular in what it is that we choose, right? Just a wrong choice here could create some issues with that Zap. And so we need to be very selective on making sure that we fill in the correct information into each of these fields. And so let me go ahead and hit this continue button here. And what Zapier is going to want to do is it's going to want to test it out. It's going to want to make sure that when we create that activity in Redtail, a Zoom meeting is going to follow. Okay. And so I'm going to hit this test and review option here. And let's see if we did it right. Okay, looks like a meeting was just sent to Zoom just now. So let's go ahead and head to our Zoom account and let's make sure that that is in fact true, that a meeting was sent to Zoom. So I'm going to slide here, one more over here, and I'm going to go up to my Zoom profile here. And I'll choose meetings here on the left-hand side. And fingers crossed. Oh, there it is. So it did, in fact, create that Zoom meeting here based off of that activity details in Redtail. So again, at this point, what I would recommend doing is just clicking into the Zoom meeting, making sure everything in there lines up so we can see, okay, it looks like the subject line came through. Let's see, was it set for 90 minutes? Yeah, looks like it was. There was a passcode that was added. That's all good. So yeah, looks like we have, in this case, a successful Zap created. we have a 90-minute meeting with the correct subject line. And so this Zap gets a thumbs up. We are ready to move forward. So what we can do now is just go ahead and turn on that Zapier application. So now it says ready to turn on Zap ? Go ahead and toggle that from off to on. And now anytime you create an activity in Redtail, it will go ahead and create a Zoom meeting. Now I'm not going to turn that on just yet. And if you are a wise Redtail user, you probably caught as to why. The reason is because I don't want to have a Zoom meeting for every activity that I create in Redtail, right? All those tasks, those phone calls, those don't need Zoom meetings, right? It's only when I set up video conference appointments do I actually need to create the Zoom meeting. And so let me introduce you to a feature of Zapier called filters. Okay, so what we're going to do here is in this connection between Redtail and Zoom, we're going to add in a filter. So that way only certain activities add Zoom meetings. And so let's click this little plus button here. And it's going to expand a menu. Oops, let's go back to setup here. All right, sorry about that. So I click that plus button and I just got this box here. Now, if I want to, I can connect another app. But in this case, what I want to do is I want to create a filter. Okay. And this filter here, I can go ahead and add in. So that way, only when certain conditions are met does a Zoom meeting get created. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be specific and say, I only want for a Zoom meeting to initiate when the type of the activity exactly matches the term video conference. So again, only when the item in Redtail is labeled as video conference do I want it to initiate the Zoom meeting. And so if I go ahead and hit continue here, I'm actually going to get an error message. The reason why is because the test activity that I'm using here does not have a type equal to video conference. Again, the type here I have labeled is appointment. So again, what I'll want to do to get this to trigger correctly is I'll want to go back to Redtail. And I'm going to want to start a client activity, a client review activity with the type equal to video conference. So that way I can use this as my test activity to create that Zap. Anybody's head spinning yet? Like I said, Zapiers are not exactly the easiest things to create. But once you understand the technology, boy, can they be powerful. So again, we'll load more here. We'll go ahead and choose that activity that was just created. Here it is 1 second ago. And again, that should allow for my filter to come on through because again, now the test activity meets these filtered setups. So continue. There we go. It would have continued. Again, if I want to, I can test this action one more time just to make sure it's good. You'll just take my word for it. It is good. I just want to move on to some of the other actions because we don't have so much time together today to talk about every single one in super detail. But again, I think you're getting the gist of it. The idea here would be when I go into Redtail and I add in an activity that is labeled as the type of video conference, Zapier is going to communicate over to Zoom to create a meeting for me in my Zoom account with the information that I put in for the activity. So that's Zapier, right? Creating an activity initiates an action in a different platform. All right. I'm sure we have plenty of questions on that Zap, but we're going to save those for the end. We're going to keep chugging along here. because I want to give you yet another example. And this time we're going to switch the order. Okay, so we are going to have ScheduleOnce initiate the activity in Redtail. In fact, let me just pause here for a second. I want to check my, yep, we got some spinning heads. I'm sorry, guys. I really tried to make this as simple as possible, but like I said, there's so many moving pieces, and you really got to get everything particularly in. And honestly, it just takes time. Like I'm no employee of Zapier. My training came from just trying different things and failing over and over again until I was able to get these right. Now, if you want to just steal the idea from me, thankfully we have those help desk articles that I shared with you in the chat to help with building those out initially. But again, it just takes time and practice. And in this example, I'm actually going to show you how you can get some support too on building some of these Zaps. So here we go. This is example number 2. And we're going to use this application called ScheduleOnce to, again, create an activity in Redtail. So we're switching the order. Now, in case you're not familiar with what ScheduleOnce is, what ScheduleOnce is it's a scheduling application. So how it works is, rather than you having to call your client or send them an email about, hey, does Thursday at 1 work? No, can you do Friday at 2? No, let's do Monday at 3. Instead of having that back and forth exchange, what these applications like ScheduleOnce do is they allow you to provide a link to your client that directly pulls from your calendar. And so rather than doing the back and forth, they just go into that link, see what times you have available on your calendar, and pick the time that works best for them. So we call that a scheduling application. ScheduleOnce is a popular one. Another one is Calendly. We also have Time Trade, Acuity Schedule. You can book me. There are a ton of them out there. Now, if you're deciding which one you should use, your first step should be to talk to your compliance team, because only certain scheduling applications are approved through certain broker dealers. So just make sure that before you start using an application like this, that you get that green light from whoever does your compliance, because there are some compliance implications from using a software like this. After that, I would just recommend trying out a few. So all of them offer, again, just like Zapier, a freemium version where you can use a free subscription and move your way up to a paid subscription if you need that functionality. But again, try a different one of them and do this. The reason I'm choosing ScheduleOnce is because it is the most popular one that we get questions about. So it is the one that I see Redtail users using the most and having the most questions about. So take that with as you will, and let's build a Zap using ScheduleOnce and Redtail. Oops, wrong direction here. Okay, so we are going to go back to our home page here. We're going to put this Zoom Zap aside for the time being, and let's create a Zap using ScheduleOnce. So again, I'm going to click on Create Zap. And we are going to go ahead and choose that trigger point. Now, again, this time the trigger point is not going to be in Redtail. It's going to be in ScheduleOnce, because that's where the client is going to go to schedule their appointment. So what I'm going to do here is just search for schedule. And as you can see, there's a ton of them. But here's ScheduleOnce, and I'll choose this one here. There we go. Again, we will choose the trigger event, which is when we have a new booking scheduled in ScheduleOnce. So again, that just means when someone opens up the ScheduleOnce link and books a time. We'll choose continue here. And we're going to choose our ScheduleOnce account. Now, again, I have mine already set up here. I did that with my Zaps, and I took care of that ahead of time. But if you need to, you can click connect new account. It's going to go ahead and open up the directions for you to set up your ScheduleOnce account. So again, in this case, you're going to need that API key, just like we got from Redtail. Here's a link where you can go and find it, and then also your login ID for ScheduleOnce. And once you put those 2 items in there, you'll make that connection between Zapier and ScheduleOnce. Okay, so we have that connected. Let's go ahead and proceed with the continue button here. And we're going to test the trigger. We're going to make sure that we can find a recent booking in our ScheduleOnce account. So let's test the trigger. And yep, looks like we were able to find one. Now, again, if you get an error message here, what you're going to want to do is open up ScheduleOnce and just do a booking, right? Doesn't have to be from an actual client, but maybe just use some sample data or even just put your own information in there like I did. And go ahead and put a sample booking in there so that way Redtail can, or excuse me, Zapier can find a trigger to test with. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue now. And here we go. The action that's going to follow, of course, is going to be in Redtail. And this time we are going to create the activity in Redtail. Let's choose our Redtail account. And then we're going to set up that action. So again, in this case, we're taking the information that was put in with the booking in ScheduleOnce, and we are going to put it into Redtail. Okay. Here we go. So the subject here, I'm going to go ahead and choose the subject of the meeting. So here is subject 30-minute meeting. And I actually like to put the person's name in the subject line of my activities in Redtail. So I'm actually going to put in with, and then I'm going to choose first name, space, last name. So that way, when I open up my Redtail activity, it's going to say 30-minute meeting with, and then the person's name. So we can actually, we don't have to just use just one of these insert fields. We can actually use multiple if we want. Okay, now we are going to choose our start date. So our start date here, we'll go ahead and find it in the insert data field. There it is. Booking start time in the owner's time zone. That's your time zone, not the person that's booking it. And we'll go ahead and put that in. Now, if you've been following up to this point and your head isn't sufficiently spinning, we'll get ready. Here it comes. This part is honestly, unless you have spent the time to read through some of the articles and actually understand it, this part you probably won't get intuitively. So let me just teach it to you now. So if we look at end date here and we choose this drop down, take my word for it, you're not going to find one here that says end date. It's simply just not here. You have start time. You have start time in the owner's time zone. You have creation date. What you don't have anywhere on here is end date. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to choose the same start time. So again, start time in your time zone. And what you're going to do is you're going to click on a space and then add a plus sign and then the duration of your meeting. So if my meeting is 1 hour, I'm going to put in the number 1 and then H. Now you might be wondering, how the heck did you know to do that? Well, you really wouldn't know unless you clicked on this little icon here with the timer. So I'll open it in a new tab here just so you can see. Here is how we can format some of our information in Redtail. And again, there is information, in Zapier, there's information about how to do those +1 H's. I believe it is, here we go. Adjust time and date values in Zaps. Again, here is the list of all the different things that you can do to adjust the time zones. So again, enter a space and then enter the modifier. Now, in case you go into this later and you forget, don't worry. In that article that we have made for these Zaps, I actually have that information in here. So again, if you just go to ScheduleOnce and Redtail, there is information all about how to do those little modifiers to make your end date match the appropriate time. Here we go. It's right here. So all the information that you'll need is right here for selecting that end date. So again, if you plan on using ScheduleOnce, you can use these modifiers here to enter in the right pieces of information. Okay, let's keep going. Let's finish out making this Zap here. Again, we're just going to go through and we're going to fill out the field. So this is not going to be an all-day event. It's going to have an actual time. The activity type here, I can go ahead and choose. I'm going to put these in as, let's say, appointments. We'll put these in as appointments. The category, let's say these are going to be client reviews. Now, again, these are pulling from your database lists in Redtail. So again, these drop downs here for type and meeting are actually directly pulled from these lists that you have here as far as drop downs on your activity. So this list here matches exactly with the list here for activity type. Okay, so just put in what you want. Now, here's one thing that I really, really like about this Zap is that when you add in a contact's email address, Zapier will actually link them to the activity. So if you're on this call right now and you might already have maybe ScheduleOnce or Calendly or TimeTrader or QTSchedule set up with Redtail using our retriever for cloud integration. So there is options. There's another option for integrating these elsewhere. But one of the, I guess, cons of that integration is that it doesn't link the activity, right? When we book something in Outlook, or we book something in Google Calendar, it doesn't know what contact we're talking about. When we use it with Zapier, it does. And because we can match up the email address on the contact with the email address on the booking and create a connection between the two. So you can actually have your contacts linked to your activities in Redtail. Pretty cool. So let's go ahead and continue. And we are going to go ahead and test this out. So we are going to go to, we're going to hit test, or hit test and review. So we'll test the contact. Let's see. Did we get that green checkbox? Fingers crossed. Yes, we did. Okay. So an activity was just sent to Redtail just now. So let's go ahead and let's check it out. Let's go ahead and look at our calendar here. And I believe I booked it for today. So let's look for it here. Our calendar for today. We should be able to find that information. So let's see. We have it here. Yep, there it is. So we have a 30-minute meeting with Austin, and here it is added. Sweet. So we went ahead and we took that activity that was, or sorry, that booking that was created in ScheduleOnce, and it created a test activity over in Redtail. So now again, showing you how this would work is we can go ahead and come here to ScheduleOnce. So here's my ScheduleOnce calendar, right? And if I want to book something, let's say for Thursday, let's do 1 o'clock on Thursday. The client puts their information in. So in this case, let's use, let me find a contact to use. I want to actually copy their email address over. So that way I can see if that will copy over. So let's use Charles here. So we're going to use Charles Brown, and there is Charles's email address. Right, let me make sure that's marked as primary too. There we go. Okay, so we're going to copy Charles's email here. So name, Charles Brown. We're going to put that email address in there. We're going to hit done. So now what Redtail should do is it should have an activity with that information that was just added. Now, I will warn you, sometimes with Zapier, it takes a couple seconds. It's not as instantaneous as you'd think. So again, I'd say give it 30 seconds. And then of course, if you don't see things, like for example, here, if I go to my calendar and I don't see that item on there right away, give your page a refresh. Sometimes that can wake it up in a sense to make it appear. So in fact, I'm going to just give that calendar page another refresh here, shake it up a little bit, reset the deck, and let's see, do we have something in here for Charlie? I'm getting this error message. Not sure what that's coming from. It could be Zapier related, could not be. We'll find out. But let's go on down here to, there we go. Thursday at 1, 30-minute meeting with Charles. It did add it. Now, it does look like it didn't quite add the contact though. So we're not all the way home yet, right? We know that Zapier here says that, hey, when you put that email address in there, it should link the contact. And we know that because it says it right here. Now that didn't quite work for me. So what I got to do is I got to do some investigating. I got to try to figure out why that is. So let me walk you through what are some of your support options for when you're creating Zaps and they just don't quite end up like you want them to. Well, the first thing that you're going to do is over here on this right-hand menu, there's this little caution button here, okay? And this is where you can go to see your errors. Now, sometimes there is just straight up an error in our Zap somewhere. And in this case, we didn't get any errors, which again, this is intentional. But if you did get an error, you can go ahead and choose to troubleshoot that error. And it will actually give you a description as to why that error is occurring and what are some potential fixes. In this case, we didn't get an error. So let me show you step number 2. You click on this little question mark icon here to go to Zapier's guide. And in Zapier's guide, you can go ahead and read through how to actually set up a Zap, as well as if you have a problem, you can click this Get Help option. Now, Zapier is going to have you describe your problem to them. What's going on with your Zap? Why isn't it quite working? Well, you can go ahead and tell them a little bit more about your problem. And so in this case, data from the trigger isn't coming through. That email address, for whatever reason, isn't making its way into Redtail to create that contact. So we're going to hit the next option here, and it's going to give us some help articles that may or may not help us with making that change happen. There's also common problems that you can read. And then obviously, if these help us articles don't help you out, you can also just submit a ticket over to Zapier support, and they can go ahead and give you some feedback or some information about why that particular Zap isn't working as intended. Now, of course, you also may know that Redtail also has excellent support that you can also submit a help ticket for or call in to receive some help with your Zap. And we are more than happy to help you to the best of our abilities with creating Zapiers. But keep in mind, this isn't necessarily our platform. We don't build Zaps. We know how to use them in relation to Redtail, but keep in mind, there's 2,000 applications on Zapier that you can create connections with. And each of those could have 20, 30 different options as far as creating connections with. So it's impossible for our teams to know exactly what's happening with your issue. So again, if you want help on the Redtail side, we're happy to give it to you, but I would just say, just be patient with us. Sometimes, again, Zaps can be tricky. And so we want to make sure that we're giving the best service that we can, but sometimes we're not always going to have the answer. And so Zapier email support is another excellent place that you can go to receive some feedback about your Zap and why it might not be working. All right, we are getting close to the time being in. I know I promised 5 examples, but I just want to kind of maybe show these ones, not necessarily the details of the setup. Again, if you want those details of the setup, be sure to head to your the Redtail help desk. And there's those articles that are written that will help you set up each of these that I'm about to describe. So a little bit faster here, just because I want to show you the different options. And we only have about 10 minutes left. And of course, I want to get to all of your questions. So example number 3, this one I found was a really useful one. And this is where we create a Google form that will help us to create contacts in Redtail. So one of the things that I hear frustration from Redtail users is that, why is it me that always has to put the contact information in, right? Why can't it be the client? Why can't I just give them an iPad or send them an email and have them put their information in there? Now, there are integration partners out there that do this really well. Two of them that come to mind are Precise FP and Red Capture. Those two platforms there, again, have some really robust software that can do a lot more than what we can do here. But what I wanted to show is just kind of a quick and easy and free example on how we can basically create a form using Google that can then create a contact for us back in Redtail. So let me give you an example. We're going to slide over here. We're going to go past Zapier, past Redtail. And what I did here is I created a Google form here. And a Google form, basically what it does is it allows for you to create a form, looks something like this, that you can email to your client. You can provide them with a link that they can just click on and come to this form here. And then they just go ahead and put in their information. So for example, here, I'll just go ahead and enter in a sample contact here. We're going to do Ricky Bobby today. Here's Ricky Bobby. Ricky can put in his birthday here. He can put in his information. And again, all this information that Ricky's filling out on his form is going to then go ahead and be put in as a contact in Redtail. And Zapier is going to be the middle person that communicates that information back and forth. So again, we're just going to go ahead and fill out this information, race car driver and his employer. Let's say he is from Shake and Bake Racing. Let's put his tax ID number in there. Again, they don't have to fill out every item on the form. You can even make these items mandatory if you wanted to. Let's put his email in there. Ricky at Shake and Bake. And we'll go ahead and put in the information into that form. Not Shake and Bake, shakeandbake.com. All right, that's probably sufficient. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to submit the form. Okay. Now, again, what we can use is Zapier to basically, whenever we get a new form intake, we can make that connection and make that contact in Redtail. So just quickly going through it, just to show you, again, I'm just going to show you one that's already been created, just because, again, we're running a little bit short on time here. And so let me go to my Zaps here and let me show you what this Zap would look like. So here it is. Google form creates contact. Again, the step-by-step instructions are available to you on the help desk. So if you want to, go ahead and visit those. But here we go, a new response in our Google Form spreadsheet. Again, we're going to link Google Form, new response. The trigger, of course, is going to be whenever we get a form intake. And then again, that's going to go ahead and create us a contact in Redtail. So all those pieces of information, this one, again, a little bit of a doozy to set up. But again, we take all of those pieces of information from our form here, and we put those into the contact fields in Redtail, and that will go ahead and make the contact for us inside Redtail. So if you're looking for a way to automate that process of having your client fill out their information and then having to go put that into Redtail, we can automate that using Zapier. So again, just a quick example here, because I think this one really valuable to some of our Redtail users, particularly when it comes into entering contact info. All right, another one I wanted to show you is using Zaps to update contacts. This is, so we're not necessarily creating new things and having them create in other platforms. In this case, we're doing an update. So if I wish I was live today, because I'd ask this question. I'd say, how many of you guys have someone in your office who just can't get off spreadsheets? And then I'd see hundreds of hands go up. Some of you are probably raising your hand right now, because it happens all the time. There's just, you know, somebody, they love their spreadsheets and they don't want to use Redtail just because their spreadsheet is what they know and they're comfortable with it. Gosh darn it, I love spreadsheets, so I'm going to use it. Well, we can use Redtail to help make connections between those spreadsheets and the CRM system. And so I wanted to just show you, again, this app here. Not going to set it up again for time reasons, but again, the setup information is available step-by-step on the help desk. And so just to give you an idea how this works here is what we can do is we can create for ourselves a spreadsheet By the way, this is Google Sheets. Same thing would apply to Microsoft Excel. So as long as it's the web-based one, so if you have like Microsoft Excel application downloaded, a little bit different. You want to be on Office 365. As long as you're on Office 365, you can create a connection web to web between your spreadsheet, Zapier, and then Redtail. Okay. And so here what we have is a list of last names, first names, and phone numbers. And so what this particular Zap does is when somebody updates a phone number or it gets put into the system, it is going to go ahead and create that on the spreadsheet. So updating a contact in Redtail will update my spreadsheet. So here it goes. Let's do it now. Let's find a contact to update. I'm going to use, let's use Lily Investor here. Okay. So we're going to pull up Lily Investor in Redtail, and we're going to update that primary phone number. And what you'll see is using Zapier, we can actually have that created. So here I am in Redtail. Let's pull up Miss Lily Investor here. Search. Oh, let's just pull up the entire investor clan here. All right, there she is. So there's Lily Investor. Okay. Looks like we do have 2 phone numbers for them, but we don't have one marked as primary. So again, when we update a phone number, we can have it update onto that spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cell phone number here and I'm going to mark it as primary. We're going to make it as the primary cell phone number. And what that's going to do is it's going to communicate this change that I just made here in Redtail back to my spreadsheet. So again, here we go. And we're going to go to this contact list here. Let's give our page a little bit of a refresh here. And oops, refresh. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but sometimes Zapier, like I said, it's like 30 seconds. It's not like as instantaneous as you might think. But oh, there it is. So there's Lily Investor, and it is added. So there's that phone number because we marked it as primary. It was blank before, but now it's filled in because we marked Lily off with a primary phone number. So again, using Redtail and spreadsheets together by using Zapier as that middle person to communicate. And again, the setup instructions for that are available for you on the help desk. Okay, last one, just because I promised you 5, and this one, honestly, I feel like this one takes the cheese. It's a great one because it works with our workflows tool. Okay, so we're not just limited to contacts and activities now. We can use Zapier with our workflows. And so this one's kind of a fun example. What I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to take a completed workflow step in Redtail, and I'm going to have it send me a message on my Slack platform. So it's going to ping me and say, hey, you just got a workflow task completed. Log into Redtail and check it out. So let me actually just show you the bones of this one, just so it makes a little bit more sense, so you can kind of get an idea as to what's happening. So let's go back here and let me show you that Zap that we have created between Redtail and Slack to create that connection. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to have a workflow step in Redtail, okay? And the trigger that we're going to use is going to be for a client review, okay? So when I have a meeting day step completed, after the meeting day is set up, Redtail is going to send me a message letting me know, hey, the meeting is now done. It's time to complete the follow-up items, okay? So again, the workflow we're using is a client review workflow, and the step specifically is meeting day. And so, of course, I don't want to Slack message every time I complete a workflow. So just like we did with the Zoom meeting here, we're going to want to make a filter, okay? And the filter I have set up for this one is just to make sure that the workflow name is for client review. So we're just talking about the client review workflows, and we're specifically talking about when the meeting day is marked as complete. Okay, so we test that out to make sure that's working good. Yep, it's working fine. Okay, so what do we want to have happen whenever we complete a workflow step that is for the client review workflow and the meeting day step? Well, we want us to send a message in Slack, letting either yourself or your team know that the meeting is complete and it's time to complete the follow-up items. So what I have here is just a little message that is going to go to Austin saying, client review meeting complete. Log into Redtail to complete the remaining follow-up steps. So rather than having to check my email or log into Redtail to see it, it's going to show right up on my Slack platform, a little message letting me know what I need to do. So just so you believe me, let's go ahead and show you how this one works in action. Again, I'm going to go up here, the plus button. I'm going to initiate a workflow. We're going to use that client review workflow. So I just start my client review workflow. It's going to be for Lily. And we're going to go ahead and create a new workflow. So now, of course, we complete our items on Monday. Then we have our meeting day. Okay. So this is where the Zapier trigger is initiated. So if I complete the items here for meeting day, what it's going to do is it's going to send me a Slack message letting me know that that item has just been completed. So just so you believe me, let's go over here. Let's open up our Slack messages. And there it is, 11:02. That's the time right now in California. And we just got a message saying, client review meeting complete. Log into Redtail to complete the following steps. So again, we're not just limited to activities or contacts. We can actually use workflows too as a trigger event to initiate things in other platforms. So lots of really cool stuff here with the Zapier platform. All right. That was a lot. And I understand Zapier, again, it's with great power comes great responsibility, right? And it really just comes with time and practice. And again, using some of those support resources to really build out your Zap. So I hope today that you got a little bit of a flavor as to what the new Zapier update can do for you and got you excited to go ahead and try it. And so now with help from those help desk articles, Zapier support, and even maybe Redtail support, hopefully we can get some Zaps created for you to truly automate some of your processes.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.